Anger is a strong emotion, yes. It signifies that you are serious. It signifies that you care, and it signifies that you want people to listen and you want people to actually do something. And it is something that we advocate and support, and Sada opposition has to live without. A few things to set up. The first being anger, we mean here is anger that is targeted, directed, and it has a specific purpose. Anger does not necessarily mean that you are out to kill everybody around you and to commit mass genocide. No. Anger looks like you rallying in the streets. Anger looks like you having mass demonstrations, all these things trying to reform for all of the various causes that social movements are fighting for. Talking about social movements does not limit itself to like feminist movements and Black Lives Matters. Social movements also include things like movements to fight for like rights of people who are working in foreign countries, rights of children who are studying, who are facing starvation, rights of people who are being oppressed in Syria, in Palestine, in Yemen. All of these things, basically, people who are in desperate need of help are under the umbrella of social movements. The next thing to set up is that the burden of government is to prove how anger is the best tool to mobilize support. However, the burden of opposition is to do two things. The first being that they have to provide an alternative solution to anger, how they expect people to actually care about all of these causes. Secondly, is that they have to prove how it is more preferable than anger and how people will suddenly garner more attention and actually support all of these causes without having a serious tone to begin with. Because at the end of the day, the metric to determine which side actually takes to this debate is which side actually garners the most support, right? The trade-off for the side of government is that we are willing to face a worst case scenario where potential property damage happen. And even worse case scenario is where a person or two gets trampled in a demonstration. We believe that it is better for all of these things to happen rather than the people who are suffering or that are suffering even more. Because the social movements actually fight for things that involve hundreds upon millions of lives that are uncountable and much more significant as compared to things that we trade off. Two argumentations. The first being that anger signifies the urgency of the situation to the public. It is important to catch as much attention from the people, from the public, because people usually are either ignorant or people know about these issues but they simply don't care. Right? The premises are two things. Number one, the anger catches media attention. When there are mass demonstrations, when people refuse to go to work and instead they flood your streets, or people actually surround your parliament or actually surround your parliament, for example, all these things catch media attention, and people at home will actually know something is happening, something is up, and I want to know what it is. Number two is that people feel disconnected and not needing to care, and therefore we have to do something about it because if you're not white, if you're not black, you don't care about black people usually. If you're not suffering in Syria, you don't care about the people of Syria. If you're not someone who is being oppressed because of of your gender, your religion, for example, you simply do not have that spiritual connection, and you believe that this is something that we can change when people actually see on television, on the news, that something that people are rebelling, that people want change, that people are demanding something to be done, and people actually wake up and realize it's something that has to be addressed to immediately. The impact here is that public awareness will increase extraordinarily because people are intrigued. So the final end goal for this argument is that we get social change. Social change in the sense that more and more people actually garner support towards these social movements. More and more people actually care, give their funds, give their actually like volunteer to help all these social movements because now they care and now they feel that there is an urgency towards this situation. Second argument, however, is that in anger incentivizes the government to take action. This argument is important because governments are the actors with the most amount of power. They have the potential to do the most things and they can support all these social movements in the most effective way possible. So the premises here are two. The first is that governments usually don't care because when it comes to about social movements, especially when it involves something like very global, something external that doesn't involve the country, they do not care and they not concern them because they want to focus on other things. Especially when you consider social movements do not actually gain a lot of financial profit towards governments. There's no money in it. And secondly, is that we claim that social unrest Like when you people consider that in or social community skills something is wrong, governments will actually do something. Because at the moment where people flood your streets, at the moment where people refuse to go to work, the the governments are actually affected. The government have to do something, otherwise the whole country will turn into like societal turmoil, things that are unnecessary and things that are inherently harmful for them. So the impacts are here at the government's care, because the governments will try to help them get what they want and resolve the issue. Regardless or not whether the government is sincere in doing that is another story. But the main concern here is the government will have to do something, because otherwise people will keep on rallying in the streets. The streets will still be flooded. People won't go to work. People will give out output. The economy will not progress as it usually does. Economic growth does not happen. All these things that actually hinder a government and society from progressing. The government has to do something, and the best way to do that is actually support of these causes, because it is what the people want and this is what the people demand. And this can only be done in the form of anger, in the form of showing that I really do care and I will do anything in my power to get what I want. So in the end, change will happen. So the weighing here is twofold. The first being, and provide to you how we get the attention of the public. People are more aware of the situation, of the severity of it, and social change happens. Compare the side of opposition, which says come by such a big manner, and they have to prove how people will actually care and actually not turn a blind eye towards things that do not concern them and do not relate to them. Number two is that we told you how governments actually have incentive to change, and because they actually have a reason to care, and they actually have something to lose if they do not care. Now, comparing the opposition was governments have little reason to care, and even if at their best case scenario, the push to reform is substantially slow, because there is not much support from the government, because the government is more concerned about trading, about diplomatic routes, all these things that directly give them money, and this is something that we regret. For change, for change and substantial change, that is, go with self government.